Live doesn't matter. Hello, everyone. This is WVKC, the voice of Knox, 90.7 HD2 Galesburg. And this is The Big Picture, the show where I interview people about their lives, passions, things like that. And today I'm joined by someone who I've been meaning to have on for a long time now, Josh Althoff. Hello.
Hello.
And I guess just to start off with, the first question I'm going to ask you is I guess just what are some of the things you do? Who's Josh Althoff?
Who is Josh Althoff? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, at Knox, at least, Josh Althoff is known for his participation with Quiver Magazine,
Mm-hmm.
the Improv Club, and a brief stint with the Live Lit Storytelling Group, and his ongoing employment as a resident assistant on the Knox College campus.
Speaking of, he is currently on double duty. He has two.
Currently on double duty.
He has two of those
Little drug phones.
drug phones. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he may have to leave us at some point if duty calls.
Yeah, so just remember, kids, every time you get locked out, somebody like me has to go
Yeah.
grab a key and fit it into your room. I'm going to stop this now.
Yeah. But yes, so that's something about
Yeah.
you, is you're an RA.
I am.
I guess we'll just talk about that real fast.
Okay, yeah. I've been an RA since my sophomore year. I became an RA because my mom insisted that I have an on-campus job, and I didn't want to work in the cafeteria. And so to allay her fears,
Mhm.
I kept telling her that I was going to become an RA. Every time she asked me what job I was going to have, I told her that I was applying to be an RA. And, lo and behold, RA applications came out, and I was like, well, I guess I'm doing this now.
Because you've been saying you're
I've
going to
been
do
saying
it.
I
Yeah.
was going to do it for such a long time. And so I put in my 2 cents, and apparently that I liked it. So,
There you go.
Yeah.
And you've been a first-year RA for the most part.
yeah, well, for
all years?
for the most part. For the first 2 years, I also had an upperclassman basement. Yeah.
All right. Would you say there's a unique aspect to RAing freshmen
Oh,
as
well,
opposed
yes.
to any other?
Yeah, of course. They're not as disenchanted with the world.
That's very true.
Yeah. No, there's this wonderful optimism. And they're not sick of college yet because they just got here. I can't speak about spring term. They might be sick by now, but fall term, everyone's popping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we'll get back to that. But the question I always like to ask of sort of students is, what were the steps that brought you to Knox?
Okay.
Why here?
Yeah, well, so my father is a professor of economics at Joliet Junior College, which is its official title, even though I think now junior college is not really the kosher term. It's, what do they call those? The 2-year institutions where you get gen eds done. And then usually transfer into
It's like
university
not
programs.
community. It's
Community, yeah.
Is it community?
college. Yeah, it's a community college. They used to be called junior colleges, and this one still is. But so my thought was when I would graduate high school, I would go to JJC because its tuition's paid for, as he's a professor there.
Mm-hmm.
I would do my stint there, and then figure out what I wanted to do with my life and go somewhere else. Probably like U of I, Champaign-Urbana. But at the end of high school, I had no real idea of what I wanted to do with my life or with college or otherwise, except the fact that I liked to write. That was about it. But my dad wanted me to have a 4-year school experience.
Mm-hmm.
My mom was much more active in the collegiate decision-making process than I was. So after a bit of paring down kind of class sizes and location, we narrowed it down to about 4 or 5 schools within a 4-hour block of my home that were small schools with emphasis in writing. And so Knox, with its rather obvious pedigree in that department, was high on the list. So after, a roundabout session of visiting colleges, Knox was the primary contender, and financial aid helped, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Knox gives a good amount of financial aid.
Oh, yes, they do. Yeah, comparatively, of course.
Yeah. All right, so you came to Knox, and you initially came here seeking
To write,
just
yeah.
to write.
Yeah, I
right?
thought that, well, I mean, one of the reasons Knox stood out was because I had a creative writing major. That's not a common major. Most schools don't have one. I'm not even sure if it's common to have a creative writing minor. Usually there's like 1 or 2 courses offered on creative writing. But,
Yeah.
it's a big deal on this campus, and that's not the case.
One of its staples, right, is
Yeah.
our writing.
Yeah. I mean, what is it? The second largest major? First largest major?
I know it's up there.
Yeah, it's got like 45 seniors right now.
Wow.
Maybe more. I don't know. I lose track of all you people. But yeah, I came to write creatively. But my first year, I did all of my gen eds. The language, the sciences, the maths, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Partly because I wanted to figure out what else I wanted to do besides English.
Yeah.
My 2 thoughts were computer science, because job security, and
Yeah.
Japanese, because job security.
Yeah, both of those computer sciences are growing.
Oh yeah, well, I mean,
Need.
it's huge.
Yeah.
I mentioned U of I, but hell, Champaign-Urbana has a massive computer science program. Yeah, one of my friends is a major there now. But yeah, I wanted to sample the waters, see if I was interested in any of it. Computer science, not so much. Japanese didn't have much time for.
Yeah.
And then I found history, which is my double major now.
Yeah, and wasn't that, I remember you had told me once, it was, you had read just a book offhand that sort of revitalized your enjoyment of history.
Yeah, Seymour Library was having one of its kind of clean-out days, where they went through the main stacks and they were giving away, I'm not quite sure how they chose the books rather, but I suspect they were books that hadn't been checked out in a couple decades.
Yeah.
And so I took some of the history books that were available because I thought they would look nice on my shelf. Really, there's like movies where they have bookshelves with lots of the leather-tomed volumes.
Yeah.
You can tell someone's like officious if they have a bunch of books. I wanted to be officious, and so I wanted a bunch of books. So I took the most official-looking history books I could, which happened to be the first 3 or 4 volumes of Page Smith's A People's History of the United States of America. And then I got to reading those eventually. They were not the first books I read, but I got to reading them eventually and kind of got hooked. So then I started taking more history courses. It just so happened that my academic advisor at the time was Professor Fatkin, who is a professor in the history department. So she of course watered my interests, and that's how that got started.
Yeah. Do you have any recollection of serious interest in history before?
Oh
then?
No. I mean, I was into APUSH right in high school,
Yeah.
but
More
I don't
of a
know,
passive.
calling APUSH history is kind of strange in retrospect.
Yeah, that's
it was a heck of a survey course, but it's universally difficult to teach 200 years to
Worth
high
it,
school
yeah.
students in 14 weeks.
Yeah,
So-
you can't touch on any one topic very deeply in
No,
that
I mean,
situation.
hell, I've spent the last frickin' better part of a year on a period of 4 months
Yeah.
on one river, and I still feel like I've not hit anything. So
Yeah, and we'll definitely, I want to get into your
yeah,
senior
we'll
research
talk
or something.
about it.
But
I'm
like,
guessing.
but in a difference with that is writing. How long was that a thing you've been into? Like,
Since I can remember, I mean, I'd write creatively. I've written creatively my whole life, but, I know I was writing creatively in 1st grade because I still have those journals.
yeah.
I know I was writing creatively in 8th grade because I still have those stories too. Throughout high school, I have like an actual record with submitting things to the school publication, and that carries on through here. So yeah, as far as I can remember, basically, I've been into writing stories.
Now, do you think that was just sort of inherent to you, or do you think your parents pushed you in that, or like?
My parents will forgive me for saying this, but they don't have much of a creative bone in their body.
Oh yeah.
No. Actually, my dad has a story that he wrote in high school submitted to a contest, but that's about his hallmark. My mom does not Just yep.
Yeah, just
no,
does not.
Just doesn't.
Just doesn't.
My sister liked to write a little bit. I think mostly what my parents did was encourage reading, right? And usually people that like to write like to read.
Yeah.
Or at least the good writers like to read. So.
That's true. A lot of our creative writing professors are just avid readers. Like,
oh yeah, well
Monica reads so much.
I mean, I don't know if there's a writer prolific enough. I don't know if there is such a prolific writer that writes more than they read. I think most writers consume more than they create.
Put out.
Yeah, I just think that's the necessity there, right?
Yeah, I mean to see how other people write and see new ways, I guess, to be inspired.
Yeah, or
right?
to be influenced, right? That's what they keep. That's what our creative writing professors call many of their projects are influence projects. So actually, right now for senior portfolio, we're in charge of compiling a bibliography of influential texts, and text refers to a bunch of different forms of media as well. But it means that for the past 4 weeks I've been engaged with trying to figure out what texts have been cornerstones in my creative or intellectual development.
That's really interesting, because for me it wouldn't just be things I read, it'd be any media I consume.
Yeah, well, I mean, One Piece is
on. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Cause
it took me a good long time to put it on there, because I didn't know how my professor would react, but I decided it had to go on just because of how much time I have spent devoted to this thing.
And it influences you. Like, I know.
Of course it does. It has to, right?
One Piece and a lot of that kind of media I consume, influences me, and particularly anytime I DM or do D&D, it influences me, and this media you consume is gonna influence or inspire you.
Yeah, it works its way into what you produce. Like, although I can't point to a specific story or essay that I've written that took its influence from Oda, performance-wise, definitely. I mean, you know this because we're in club together, but I have a proclivity towards nautical themes.
Like
ships.
Ships, yeah.
I love putting people on ships. I love being sailors. I love being pirates. Because of One Piece.
Because of One Piece.
Of course, yeah.
Which, if any listeners don't know, One Piece is just a manga.
Best-selling manga of all time.
Yeah, it might. It's gonna
about to beat Batman.
And it will beat Superman one day at the rate it's going.
I think Batman's at 474 million. Or billion, or whatever the hell. 474, whatever the unit is.
Yeah.
And One Piece is at about 457.
So it's there.
Yeah, well, One Piece has also been around for what,
over 20 years.
20 years, and Batman's been around since the 50s.
Yeah.
So, so One Piece is going to outsell all those guys.
So it's really well known, and me and Josh are big nerds about it.
Oh, yes, yeah. I mean, we could talk the total 2 hours about One Piece if you'd like.
We won't. This is all we'll talk about.
For the sake of your viewers.
For the sake of everyone.
Yeah.
But I will now, I don't know if you know this, when you make YouTube videos, you put tags under.
Oh, really?
One of the tags shall now be One Piece.
Yeah, okay. Hey,
it works out. I think it's something to do with when people search things, the likelihood it'll come up for that.
Did you see the most recent chapter?
I did. Yeah.
All right.
There you go. That's all. So to continue down this path of the majors you've chosen, that sort of thing, has the kind of creative writing you thought you wanted to do changed since you came to Knox, right?
Yeah, probably. I mean,
did you come wanting to write specifically fiction or?
I came wanting to do fiction, and then about at the end of my sophomore year, beginning of my junior year, I transitioned into mainly writing poetry. I can't really call that a new pursuit because I wrote a lot of poetry in high school as well.
But it was a change of
mostly bad poetry, but poetry nonetheless.
But a change of focus, right? In
a lot of ways, yeah, it was.
In time.
I don't know. I don't know exactly what all came together to influence that change, but it happened.
Yeah.
So I don't really owe fealty to any particular genre of writing.
You just like writing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's certainly true that nowadays I read a lot more poetry than I do fiction. But I also just wrote a play.
Yeah.
Right? Which I've never taken a playwriting class in my life, and it shows apparently in the format. I've had friends look over it and they're like, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "It's a play." And they're like, "No, it's not."
Are
It's
you
a
talking specifically
of-
about the play that was performed recently?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I submitted it at the behest of a friend, and it was chosen for one of the plays that New Plays put on.
I might be biased, but I thought it was really good.
Well, thank you. It's seen some editing since people would have seen it or read it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just, did you want to edit it more?
Well, no, I got good feedback on it, and I wanted to edit it because it was not as good as it could be. Like, yeah.
As like a play?
Yeah, as a piece. There was motives were not always explained, and at one point reactions did not sit well with how the character would have reacted. And so I had to do a bit of maneuvering to actually try to explain why this interaction was happening the way it was. It was important that the interaction happened, but it needed to be clearer what the stakes were in that situation for each character.
And did those things only really become clear because it was brought to a wider audience, or do you think it was because it was played in front of you?
It's a combination between the two. Comments at the after, the talk back, very helpful. Talking with the actors was helpful too, because there's no one like the person that's been saying this line for a week to tell you that it's not really working.
Yeah.
And seeing the play performed was really helpful because it's. You know how you're supposed to read your essays out loud?
Mm-hmm.
Well, seeing your script performed, you're like, oh, shit. I really need to change this, or I don't know why she's saying that. Yeah.
So there you go.
It was also helpful because one of the businesses of Portfolio is that we have to edit like everything we've produced creatively at Knox.
Yeah.
And so I basically outsourced my editing of Lady in the Crypt to
the entire
New
campus.
Plays Festival. Yeah. Which was helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a daunting task to just edit.
Oh hell,
everything.
It's I feel bad for the fiction writers or the playwrights because, like, I've written mostly poetry, so I think I counted this. I have 63 to 68 poems, fewer than 8 fiction pieces, and 1 play. But all of that probably page total. I don't know, 160, 180 pages. Some of these fiction writers, some of these playwrights have like bundles of 300, 400 pages. I know, nightmarish.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's too much.
Would you say, other than the act of creatively writing something, do you think the ability to write something like poetry, like for me, I got into poetry recently, and I have found it has like elements to it that are good for, like, I guess, mental health and like general well-being. I don't know if you could speak to that topic at all, of just like how writing helps you in ways other than just
my ability to write.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, there are points in time where writing is a what do they call it? Something that makes you feel better. What's that called?
Like therapeutic or
therapeutic.
Cathartic.
Cathartic, that's the
That's
word.
the word.
Yeah. There are times when writing is cathartic, like after a loss or what have you. And when you're, trying to come to terms with something that has happened, it helps to write it out, and it helps to write it out creatively because you create a poetic sort of distance to it. I think that's its biggest use for me.
Yeah. It's like a cathartic tool.
Yeah, well, biggest use outside of wanting to create, right?
Yeah.
Because there's also a desire to write, not necessarily because I want to tell a certain story, but simply because I want to make something, right? And so poems help me make things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's no secret, I suppose, that you and Liam are a big reason why I write poetry now, because you guys invited me to that poetry night, which has now become like a pretty frequent
there's like
thing.
6 or 8 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I won't be able to tonight just because I'm
swamped
by homework, and I'm chatting with like 4 different people about improv election crap. So
yes, politicking.
Yes. Improvitics, as it were.
Improvitics.
Yeah, but so, and we'll get to maybe improv later,
Sure.
but in the same vein as talking about how writing has affected your life, other than the desire to create. How has you delving into history changed you?
My God.
That might be a big topic.
It is. Well, I mean, it's
Which
still
we'll go
it's
down
still
that road.
it's still changing.
Yeah.
The biggest impact probably. It's a funny password. Sorry. I'm like a squirrel. Or sorry, like dog. Whatever. I'm an animal that can't
Focus on one
I'm gonna
thing.
stop now.
History.
Driving between Galesburg and St. Louis this last summer,
Mm-hmm.
I was able to recognize about 3/4 of the names of places I was passing
Wow.
because of their historical context. I was able to I was able to make very educated guesses about why places were named the places
things
that
they
were.
are, yeah.
Or I was able to connect them to actual settlements and posts that I was studying for my project.
Mm.
That was a weird feeling. Because it's this odd grappling that I think a lot of people have largely within their family, right? When they see photographs of their grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
This idea that something has existed before, right? This idea that your experience is not necessarily unique to you.
Yeah.
Or that the idea that that the land survives its names, right? The names that we give it. That's strange, and that's I think the biggest impact that history has had.
Could you elaborate on the land survives its names? What's that about?
Look at different languages. We have different names for things. So.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm a little lost.
Yeah, that's okay. Right now I'm thinking of Derek Walcott's long poem Omeros,
Mm-hmm.
where he talks about the history of the island called St. Lucia. It was not always called St. Lucia. Yeah, it was called. It was named several different things by several different groups of people, and still by the Arawak people who lived there. And pardon my mispronunciation of that name. Still called yet another thing by the Arawak that lived there.
Mm-hmm.
So this idea that these physical things outlast
the things
the
we put
mental
on them.
creations we put on them is important, I guess, to historians.
Yeah. Well, it kind of gets into the idea that a lot of history is what we put on it, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends how you'd like to define history. Usually what I say is that the thing most people refer to as history is historiography. And that's not probably quite correct if you're talking to people that, actually know the nuances of what historiography means.
Mm-hmm.
But if you Nico Robin, right? Always looking for true history. This is a One Piece reference for those of you who don't know. She's always looking for what really happened, right? The truth of it. What happened.
What happened.
Right? And if you take that little pure golden nugget of truth, that exists, or existed, at least. You could call that the record of all moments at a singular time, right? So there is some sort of objective truth recounting the actions that took place within the last minute everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
That existed, right? That was accessible, kind of. What we say about that moment ends up being the history that we write, right? And the further away that moment, that little nugget gets, the more convoluted and harder it is to explain or make assertions about that history. That's why we have primary sources, right? That's why we depend so much on letters and journals. But trying to reconstruct an entire person out of a journal is difficult, no matter how prolific they were.
Yeah.
So...
Because I'd even think about any journal writing I've ever done and think, could somebody get...
Oh, yeah. Like, imagine somebody, took your notebook from, Japanese 101 and tried to use that as evidence towards your personal convictions.
It just seemed...
It's ludicrous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ludicrous. Often it's important, right? And that's why historians have jobs.
Yeah.
It's because it's important and people, it matters to people where they came from. Not as much as it used to, but there are still people who care.
Who care?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's the cliche thing, right? Knowing where we've been helps us know where we're going, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's truth to that. But
there is. There's a certain amount of truth to it, sure. Yeah.
Is there any way that, I guess it'd be a weird thing. I don't know if there'd be any truth to this idea, but are there people or instances where people, just anyone, looks at history in a way you would disagree with? Or
yeah, certainly. So there are different schools of historical thought, just like there are schools of literary criticism, right? We have Marxist historians, feminist historians, queer historians, and these are all labeling the types of history they do rather than the identities of the authors.
Yeah.
New historians, old historians.
So just sort of the lens in which they're...
Yeah, well, I mean, notoriously, there's a divide in how one pursues history depending upon their own political ideology, right? And there's also the existence of history as a tool, because history is so malleable, anyone can really use it to prove anything. It's a bit like statistics, you know. As long as you know how to manipulate statistics, you can make them say a lot of things that they might not actually recommend.
Yeah, so...
at least that's what I've been told about statistics. Correct me if I'm mistaken.
Yeah. So in the same way, if you know a few things about historical events, you could twist them.
Oh, yeah, certainly. People do it all the time. I mean, go and listen to any political speech ever, right? Are they talking about the revolution?
Yeah.
Are they talking about the Civil War? Are they talking about civil rights? What are they saying about them? Like, it's similar to how people use religion. They just kind of, or how politicians use religion, at least.
Yeah.
They just kind of drop the word God and then, I don't know, reference John.
Yeah.
And that's it, right? And people will use that as proof of their, you know, devout faith, or people will use that as proof that somehow these politicians are replicating the views of the founders of the United States, whether or not those are views that you'd want to replicate in the first place. It's, I'd say the majority of historians try to approach history as, or rather try to approach history with a scientific method. Like, and by that I largely mean going into it without a clear idea of what you'd like to find.
Yeah.
But that's certainly not true of all historians, and it's definitely not true of all people that use history. Yeah.
Typically, when you look at history, you're wanting to see something.
Yeah. Well, you want proof, right? People that look to the past to find proof aren't doing quality analysis, usually. Yeah, not even usually. I think I'm comfortable saying that all the time.
That all the time.
Yeah. If you look back with a specific thing of what you want to find, you're tainting your research.
Entirely.
Yeah. It's
Well, to get away from...
Unless you realize that, like, midstream. And then you're like, oh, shit. And you write an expose on yourself. But, yeah.
Which could also do good.
Yeah.
To get away from the concept of history to your own history.
Okay. The history of me as a person?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a nice little transition.
Yeah, little transition there, little segue.
Yeah.
So you are indeed a senior.
Yeah.
You will be leaving here soon.
I will.
Coming into Knox, and having gone through Knox, what things have happened that you didn't expect? And I guess what things did you expect that have happened? Like, did you expect to make the kind of friends you made here that you have? What was that kind of like? If you can recall.
So we're going over unexpected changes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I suppose I should first preface this with an expected change then. You know, everyone talks about how they'd like to, remake their image in college or what have you.
Yeah.
I approached that with a very similar view, right? I wanted to be someone else than who I was.
Than who you were.
Yeah. And perhaps some of that was grounded in mistruths or thinking badly of myself, but
Mhm.
but basically I wanted to interact with the world a little differently than I had. And so I attempted to make those changes. So that was the expected change. The unexpected change, I could have never guessed the quality of friends that I would make.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'd never expect the quality of romantic pursuit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did not guess the degree with which I would root myself in the student body here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't quite, or rather, looking back, I don't quite know how that happened. That is, I don't know how I met so many people.
Yeah.
I've always not been great at meeting people, and so in the last 4 years, something changed.
Where you've just, it's hard. I have a hard time meeting someone who doesn't know about you.
Oh, well, that's cute.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting to think that, because to me it sounds like a lot of things you didn't expect to happen involved relationships with people.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
I've been an introvert most of my life. All of my life. I can't account for myself as a baby because I wasn't quite cognizant then. But I kind of went through the rounds of trying to, find my identity in high school or middle school through high school.
Yeah.
Never quite got there. Didn't have a whole lot of close friends. I had friends, but not a lot of close ones. Usually after school, I would just kind of go home, do my work, play video games, go to bed, read, and then that was about that. But I thought parties were kind of mythic occasions that didn't really happen, just happened on TV.
Yeah.
Turns out people that actually had high school parties. Did you know that?
I never
did
went.
you go?
I never went.
Okay.
But I would hear
I
about
had
them.
no idea until the end of my senior year when I started going on dates with this very popular foreign exchange student. And she would get invited to things, and by proxy, I would also be invited to the event. Yeah, these bonfires, right?
Yeah.
Where that people would have in their backyard. I had no idea that people were that social, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was a myth, but it wasn't.
I find it interesting that that you say you're an introvert, because I don't know, in my mind you appear a very sociable person.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind. Would you say that's a skill you've acquired?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. So I worked on public speaking a lot in high school. Towards the end of high school, I worked on it through Model United Nations, through giving speeches as a Boy Scout leader,
Mm-hmm.
These types of things. But speaking publicly and speaking personally are two very different skills.
Yeah.
Right? And because I was not accustomed to having a lot of close friends in high school, I was perfectly fine in small groups or one-on-one or what have you, but
Yeah.
but I did not go out of my way to try to get to know people I didn't already know. I had a lot of kind of situational friends
Yeah.
that we were sitting next to, and
Yeah,
that's
that you're
how
in
we
the
got
same
to-
class.
Yeah,
and, yeah.
but again, I wouldn't go over to these people's houses, right?
Yeah.
We wouldn't celebrate birthdays together, this sort of thing. I was close with my family, but with rare exceptions, that was the case.
And that changed in college.
In college, yeah. Yeah, I can't quite pinpoint a change of. It's hard to point to that's the moment where everything changed, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if life works that way.
Yeah,
Right?
it probably doesn't. I can try to speak to some of the steps that I took.
Mm-hmm.
Very vividly, I remember actually my then roommate, freshman year, invited me out to see the outdoor movie. Do you remember the outdoor movie?
They
During
would do
orientation
beginning of the
week?
year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
orientation week. He invited me out to see the outdoor movie with some people that he had met, and I said no, because I said no to everything
Mhm.
back then, in high school as well. I had just I didn't like to go places, and so I said no to things. And about 10 minutes passes by, and I'm sitting there like on my phone or on my laptop. And I start to think to myself, like, you should really go out and make friends. Or you should go. You shouldn't be here. You're being a putz. I thought, hey, my dad's a fan of that phrase. You're being a putz.
You're being a putz.
And I thought to myself, Josh, you're being a putz. And so I kind of said, fuck it. And I put down my stuff, and I marched on out to the old main field. And by that time, the movie had started, and it was dark outside. And I had no idea who any of these people were or where my roommate was. And so instead of giving up, I paced up and down each row of kind of blanketed people, staring at their faces lit by the fluorescent colors of Inside Out, the movie, until I found them at the very last row in the corner. And I sat down and I met everyone. And it's still the core group of friends that I hang out with today.
Wow.
Yeah.
And all because you
because my roommate invited me.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But also, like, there was that moment, though, where you did say no, and then you went, you know what, I should go.
You know what I should say, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and along with that, during our Carnival of Clubs, there was a very specific club that I wanted to make sure to join once I got to college. Because people had always told me that I should do this in high school. And so I thought, it's time for something new.
Yeah.
So I looked for, because I didn't know if it existed, I looked for an improv club.
Yes.
Because I had always heard that colleges had improv clubs, and they were goofy and terrible, and I wanted to see what it was. So I found the improv club, and I joined the improv club, and, well, have you ever seen the movie Yes Man?
I have not.
Oh, really? Really?
Is that the movie where
Jim Carrey.
He can't say anything but yeah?
Well, I mean, he can. He just chooses not to.
He chooses not to. Yeah.
He's a piece of crap, and then he goes and sees a motivational speaker that says, say yes to things. So he started saying yes to everything. And eventually it got pretty unhealthy.
Yeah.
And then he found the motivational speaker, and the motivational speaker basically says, dude, you don't say yes to everything.
Yeah.
That's the starting point. You start by saying yes to everything, and then you start saying yes to things that make you happy. Right? And it's the moral of the movie, and I like the movie.
I need to see it.
But it's the most improv movie that I've ever seen. I mean the whole thing's based around the concept of improv. Yes, and so I think joining that organization too, one, helped me with,
being able to say yes to things.
Performing,
right?
yeah. But also just the concept of saying yes to things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. After I'd been at college for a couple of terms, I think once about spring term freshman year, I just started to become kind of a happier person, which was a strange change.
And do you attribute that a lot to, I mean, of course, the step-by-step changes of, like, me being with friends you could, like, really talk to and saying yes to things? Like, that's sort of the the general feel of it.
Those are the stepping stones I point to generally, yeah. Well, saying yes to things was the big one.
Now that we are at improv.
Oh, sure, yeah. And stay here a while.
we'll be here for a little bit. Yeah, what was that like when you first, like, what was freshman year improv like for you?
Oh, God. I didn't almost quit, but I almost ended up being one of the people that drifted away from it and never went back.
Yeah. Which happens.
Which happens. I mean, that's, people finding their own priorities.
Yeah.
And I started to think that it wasn't a priority until I kind of made myself go back. And I've been there ever since. So, haven't missed a rehearsal.
Yeah.
But what was it like? Let's see. It was small. It was maybe, if we're talking core members, maybe 10 people.
Okay.
That, like, would show up. About half of them would show at each rehearsal. Maybe a little more. Maybe 15 branch members. Mm-hmm. So I'd say at most Wednesday and Sunday rehearsals, we had anywhere between 6 and 10 people.
I'm trying to think how that compares to now. Because now, I know Thursday rehearsals are extremely small for us, but, like...
Thursday rehearsals are about the size of what normal rehearsals were.
Yeah. Wow. Because now we have at least, like, 10, usually, if not a little more.
Oh, at every meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, usually you have anywhere between 12 and 15, which doesn't seem like it's a huge difference, but boy, does it feel like it.
Yeah. Compared to
Yeah, no, it's and it fluctuates obviously.
Mhm.
You remember like last year. Do you remember fall term last year?
How many people were there?
How many people were at like
It
those
was
daily
so
meetings?
many.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. It was almost too much.
Yeah.
Right? It was really hard to get
It's
up
like-
to do things.
What was it? It was the first rehearsal of winter term, I think, this year, where we had and we played that game where we did like a line and spread rumors.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Fast food gossip.
Like that. But
Yeah.
that was how it was fall term my freshman year.
yeah.
There was so many people.
So many people. So yeah. That's how
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest kind of change.
Kinda.
Besides just the people that come and leave.
Mhm. When did you kind of decide? When did you decide or find out that improv was like a place you wanted to get really involved with in terms of like being in an exec position or and being more involved with that group of people?
Winter term freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just because I started to like it, and because I started to have a closer relationship with seniors and juniors in the club.
The seniors and juniors at that time would have been not the like Trevor group, but the
Yeah.
Was it that group
Yeah.
that were the seniors at the time?
No, juniors.
Juniors, yes.
Yeah.
Um,
The seniors, Michelle, Carly, Holden, Julie.
yeah, I feel like I've seen them once because I feel
I've
like
seen a couple of them.
Yeah,
I've
'cause
seen
I-
like Michelle and Carly maybe.
Yeah, because I feel like there was a party, like a post-show party my freshman year that they were there. And
yeah.
yeah.
That sounds right.
I think I remember you at one point saying that your freshman year improv, you remember being, and I don't know if you meant this jokingly, like, oh, back in my day, but like much more harsh or difficult, or I forget.
Difficult.
Yeah, or like, I'm trying to remember the way you would say it.
I would often say that it was more rowdy.
Yeah, yeah, that's something.
People
too.
are a little rougher around the edges. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
For sure.
Difficult.
I might be misremembering the sort of things you'd say.
Well, I mean, I remember the difficulty with which we tried to learn some of these games.
Mhm.
Like, it took us several rehearsals until the freshmen could do a herald that made any sense.
Yeah, meanwhile, this freshman group learned pretty quickly, at least how to
Yeah.
basically do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I try to think like, I hope we just haven't been teaching it wrong.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Maybe it should be more difficult. I don't know. Yeah. It always becomes easier to improvise when you know the people.
Mhm.
And so the longer you're in the club, the easier it becomes. Not only because you're practicing, but also because you begin to know the people you're doing scenes with. So I'd say that's, if it were more difficult my freshman year, that's why.
That's why.
Simply because I was worse, right? As an actor. It was just worse. And because I didn't know any of the people. So.
When did you start copying
Trevor?
Trevor.
Sophomore year.
sophomore year?
Yeah. Beginning of sophomore year.
Was it a conscious thing? Was it a...
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Totally. You were
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, Trevor does great. I want to do...
Trevor does great. I want to be like Trevor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Oh, yeah. I knew that my weakest trait was my physicality.
Mm-hmm.
I was always the same person when I came onto the stage. I talked like Josh. I had I knew all the things that Josh did. I reacted like Josh. I walked like Josh. Trevor was never Trevor. Ever. Trevor was never, ever Trevor. And I wanted to never, ever be Trevor. So I was Trevor.
So you were Trevor. Yeah,
So I became
exactly.
Trevor. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be hard sometimes because I feel like when we go out and we're improvising, your instinct is to go to what's comfortable, which is
Yeah.
you being you.
Well, it's because improv is all based on your reaction, right? And we reacted to things the way that we're kind of trained to.
Yeah.
We practice reacting to things every day. Somebody comes up and says hi, and you say hi.
Hi.
That's your reaction as Matt, right? You don't improvise your reactions on a day-to-day basis. That would be just
Horrible.
loony and terrible.
Yeah.
Like, my God, can you imagine if you came up to me in the calf and you said, hey, Josh,
yeah.
and I was like, oh, hello, son. Like, you just walk away. You'd
Yeah,
be
I'd be
like,
like, I'm done.
not up for this.
You're like, Josh's
Right.
having a weird day.
And
I'm
at
gone.
improv, it's like a space where you have to turn that off.
Mhm.
It's the reason that I think we're so awful in the gizmo is because we've just come out of that space, and so we still have kind of the fumes of not acting the way that people should.
People should act. Yeah.
right? We just got out of this space where anything's acceptable, and then we immediately transition into a public venue filled with people, and we're just
loud and.
I almost feel bad, not for the other people. I almost feel bad that I've never gotten to see an improv gizmo. Because I've always been in improv, right?
Yeah.
I've never been able to be a normal person in that circumstance.
Just doing work.
And look up at them and say, what a bunch of weirdos. I've never gotten to have that.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I
should ask people what it's like.
What it's like.
I don't know. Yeah.
To just sit there and go, oh my gosh, the improv people are here.
Yeah, the improv people are here. Yeah.
That is the consistent reaction, I feel. I know that because we hit home with lots of laughs, and we did that scene in a show.
You did that scene, yeah.
Yeah, with the, the improv people are in the gizmo or whatever, and everyone was like, yep.
Yeah, it's them walking on over. My God,
Get the fryers ready.
Trampling in.
Yeah. No, it's really good. You were vice president first.
Yeah, so I ran for vice president, and then I ran for president.
And then you got stuck with Muse.
The Muse.
The Muse, as it were.
Well, actually, come Wednesday, I won't even be the Muse. So.
You'll be done.
Yeah, funzo dunzo.
I love both how Muse is the meme exec position, but it doesn't exist. It doesn't really exist. But also just I guess a question of curiosity, less than I guess topical. But have nominations always been as wacky and silly as they've been this year and last year? In that nominations are just like you end up with all these nominations and it ends up small. Like
most. Well, I can't even say most. The ones that I experienced before the last 2 years, there were 1 or 2 options for each position, and you voted between them.
Now, do you think that was due to size or just environment?
Part of it was
people?
size and interest.
Yeah.
Not everybody ran. Right? Or people had... Generally, 2 years ago, we were better at figuring out things ahead of nominations.
Yeah.
And so the people that were nominating or being nominated had already talked to each other, already knew that they were running for a specific position, and knew that they weren't running for other positions.
Yeah. But this case, I think it has a lot to do with the fact the freshmen are all friends.
Oh, and they like each other. Yeah, no, it's an interesting problem. It's a good it's a better problem than not, having any interest. That's certainly true. That's why, like, Trisha was teasing about ardently refusing an exec position. Like, you can do that. And she was talking about me rejecting a nomination for treasurer that I had received.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I've already sent an email saying, no way am I doing treasurer. I just put that up because it was just Amber, and we were all like, which is great. But, I definitely went in, like, I think there was only one nomination I was put up for that I was like, I hadn't considered that really before, but I'm like, sure, we'll talk it out and see how it goes. But other than that, the rest were all things I kind of knew going in. But I think that also comes with, my thought is I think it might be a freshman thing, because I feel like my freshman year, I was nominated for things, and it was just like, oh, I'm just flattered to be nominated.
I'll do everything. Yeah. But...
And then as you get older, you're like, no.
You pick a thing and you run for it.
Yeah.
Well, that's why they have the drop down.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's kind of what I was trying to say. It's like, listen, there's just a drop down. You don't have to.
You don't have to nominate for everything.
For every little thing.
No matter what, it's going to be fine.
Now, this might be a super easy question.
Okay.
But which of those 3 exec positions proved to be the most difficult?
Muse.
By far. Most difficult.
Muse.
Yeah, I mean, you have to yes everything.
Yeah.
You have to show up every rehearsal. Now, is that a serious statement, or is that the jokey statement?
It's half serious. So, I'd hazard that anyone who's listening to this recording probably was at improv yesterday.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Yeah,
for sure.
a lot of people. All right, but for context, I gave a little spiel about what the Muse does.
Yeah, which is really good, by the way.
Well, thank you. In short, the Muse is just a good club member.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of the ideal club member. And it is that is hard to do.
Yeah.
But most of the difficult things that you have to do as a good club member, you also have to do as president, because presidents have to be the ideal club member.
Yeah.
Right. So something you never know until you're up there as president or co-president or whatever, is how difficult it is to be positive the whole time.
Yeah.
And the reason it's difficult is not because you have difficult people,
Mm-hmm.
right? But because it's necessary for your energy to match the energy you expect to receive, right? So if you want people to be excited, you got to be excited, right? If you want people to put emphasis on the words, you got to, even an hour and a half in, you got to be up there and you got to be punctual.
Yeah.
Right? You got to be expressive.
Which is draining.
Which is
sure.
which is draining, so you get tired, sure. But it's difficult because, as any teacher would tell you, it's hard to teach people that don't seem super interested. And I'm not saying that club doesn't seem interested, but like,
We're college students.
we're college students.
Yeah.
If it's difficult to teach improv to a group of people that's on their phones. It's difficult to teach improv to a group of people that only half of them are smiling, or even looking at you, or might be having side conversations.
Yeah.
So I think the most difficult job of president is, in light of those things, still being present and energetic and what have you. Because if someone's checking their phone, you feel like it means that they aren't listening to what you're saying and they don't care. But the truth of it might be that they're checking a text from their mom, or, calling their dad when they're at the hospital.
Yeah.
Any host of things.
Yeah.
They're not always on Tumblr, right?
Or they're one of those freaks that can somehow multitask and be looking at what that.
Yeah,
and
or they're
be...
taking notes, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, that used to be more prevalent. People actually like writing down notes. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the difficulties are just endurance, really. Like.
Emotional endurance.
Yeah. Just more like cognizant endurance, like your mind rather than your. It's difficult to be on for that long, but it's also necessary, and it's kind of the position's description.
Main focus is to be just, I guess, the person that gets people to get up.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You gotta be okay. You know the hype men from orientation week?
Yeah.
You're that person for everyone in the club.
Just be the greatest.
And yourself.
Which is really crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've even seen this right now, but for the last 5 minutes, I've turned into improv president, right?
Yeah. Because you've been all...
It's not actually how I
You normally
with
interact with
most
people,
of the time. Yeah. But I can go back to it, right? I like being expressive. This is fun. But this is how I talk to people.
And it's got to be freeing to, after having been in that role where you have to be that all the time, it's got to be freeing. Do you have the skills built from doing that, but not having to do it all the time?
Oh, yeah. That I can just kind of transition into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
It's just the ability.
Yeah, it's like a circus barker.
Yeah. Now, was that something you developed by being president, or was that something you kind of had the ability to do?
No.
Beforehand?
I had some slight experience with it because of my leadership roles in Boy Scouts. Or actually, now it's just Scouts. So, well, is it more correct to say my leadership positions in Boy Scouts or Scouts? The name changes after you're done with it. What do you...
Yeah, I guess just Boy Scouts, because that's what you were in charge of.
That's what I was in.
Yeah.
Whatever. I was senior patrol leader, and I was in charge of trying to get all these, like, squirrely-ass little kids in a row. Most of whom did not respect me. So
Yeah.
So there's some element of that transferred over, but largely it was on the job learning.
That's got to be difficult. I think about that sometimes, like how you're, especially if you're in like president or any exec role, really for any club. It's particularly in college. It's like you're them. You're the same age. And it's got to be weird to be put in that position.
Yeah, well, tell that to an RA. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. An
Oh,
RA
yeah.
who's in charge of their peers. My God. Part of the reason. So the longer you are a freshman RA, the easier it becomes.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is because you feel like you're building a skill set. And it's true. You are.
Yeah.
You're building a skill set and it follows you and you're able to react to things better because you've dealt with them before.
Yeah.
But part of it is just that
They respect
you're
you.
older than them now.
Yeah.
And bigger than them. And usually more jaded than them. And they have a respect for that.
Yeah.
Right? When you're in charge of your peers, it's a different story. So, yeah.
And it's hard to build that. It'd be really hard to build that kind of relationship at any leadership role at Knox or any college where you're
Oh yes, I
with your peers.
have great respect for most student leaders.
just having to maneuver that.
Having to deal with running an organization. Running organizations is difficult. Running anything is difficult. Like, I like to laugh sometimes at people that are in the position of project manager. Because it seems so funny to me that there's a whole position dedicated to doing nothing but running a team of people that do something. Right? That there are these people in charge of teams that code that know nothing about computer science. But they're still being paid like as much as the coders. Sometimes more.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Well, it's because they're good at running the thing.
Yeah.
And that's not a skill a lot of people have.
Being able
right?
to run something.
There's a lot of people that run things that don't run them well, right? There's a lot of people in leadership positions that shouldn't necessarily be in leadership positions.
Yeah.
But at college it's rather safe because even if you're in a leadership position and you're not quite qualified for it, or even if you feel like you're not doing the best of jobs, you're in college. It's preparing you for leadership positions in real life.
Real life.
Yeah. Positions like parent.
Yeah.
Or any occupation, right? Or uncle,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, that's... I feel like we can easily forget that this is just a step in our lives and college is not everything.
Oh, college isn't everything. If you
Yeah.
peak at college, there's a problem.
Yep.
If you peaked at high school, I have some notes for you.
Yeah, my goal so far, like even with this radio show, right, it's to build skill sets of just interviewing people, talking to people, learning things, and doing this, just so I can leave and be like, look, I've done this.
Yeah.
This is the next step if I wanted to continue, that sort of thing. And I think that's really crucial. And I guess in that step-by-step basis, maybe this is a weird segue, but
Shoot.
I just have again, you're a senior, you've been here 4 years, so you've seen changes.
I've seen shit.
Starting off with the improv club, I guess, this is a really big topic, so I'll just start off with a smaller version of this topic. How have the exec positions changed since your freshman year, right? Have the nature of them changed at all?
Yeah. Well, wait. Vice presidents being in charge of bonding has faded in and out.
Yeah.
It was a thing before our time, and then we brought it back, and then it faded again, and then we brought it back, and then it faded again. So I suppose that's something. I think most of the other ones look pretty similar to how I saw them my freshman year.
All right. I know project manager has changed from 2 people to 1 people.
Yeah, it used to be 1 person.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, vice presidents doesn't have to be co either, or didn't used to be co. Doesn't have to be co, rather.
Yeah. In my mind currently, this is my own opinion, I guess, but I think the only positions that really need to be co are like president, and I'd argue PR, just so you have 1 person who's on the creative side, 1 person on the social media side.
Sure. I don't know enough about PR to speak to it.
It's just,
but president is necessarily a co-position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think everything else you can get by with like the one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
one
you can, but
it's also nice to have someone else there to share in your.
As long as exec doesn't become a chore,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it really matters if there's 2 or 1.
2 or 1. Yeah.
As long as people are communicating.
Yeah.
Which is usually the brunt of the problems that happen in any organization, right?
Yeah.
Communication problems.
No, yeah, for sure.
So
Communication is really big, and it can be hard to do. Again, because I think particularly in smaller clubs, when everyone's a friend, it can be hard to communicate even minor criticisms or even like minor like concerns, you know, because you're all friends. And
I suppose that might have been the so for the first 2 years of me being in the club, there was usually after you sat down from the scene, people would take about 30 seconds to talk about the scene you just did and critique it, which was sometimes helpful.
Sometimes it's like writing workshops,
right?
right?
It's like a writing workshop. You know, you get these comments back, and they're like, "Change this comma," and you're like, "No."
You just completely disagree.
Or they're like, "Hey, I think this piece would benefit from some more varied sentence structure," and you're like, "Okay."
Yeah.
Right. So there's always
it varies in helpfulness for sure.
Varies in helpfulness.
Yeah. In a similar vein, how has Knox changed?
How has Knox changed?
Yeah, in the 4 years.
Oh, let me tell. Back in my day, you could enter the cafeteria through the Oak Room.
I think on admitted
two people set up, two swipers, and so you could swipe into the Oak Room or swipe into the caf.
Didn't they have different food?
Yeah.
In each?
Yeah. So in the Oak Room, correct me if I'm wrong, other seniors, but I think at lunch usually that was where the sandwich bar was, and at dinner they usually had themes, right? So it'd be like enchiladas or corn dogs and beef dogs or something, or build your own pizza. Then sophomore year, there was an influx of those types of do-it-yourself stations.
Yeah.
So like build your own pizza, build your own whatever the hell, which nowadays is kind of like the panini press, I guess, that they have, or stir fry. Oh, stir fry used to be a big deal. It still is to some degree, but people got there early to get their stir fry. Holy God.
So do you say it's mostly been the food that's changed?
Well, I mean, the layout changed too. It used to be all long tables, kind of like how they have it set up in the unofficial athlete section. Yeah, it used to be that, but everywhere. Except the middle tables in the center of the columns. Yeah. There were a couple 2-person tables where they are now, I think. And also another set of 2-person tables where the desserts are now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you've heard of the Fat Cave. Were you around for the Fat Cave?
I don't think I was here back when the Fat Cave existed.
The primary, the biggest, landmark of the calf was the Fat Cave, which had all the, desserts in a cave. So you know where that one-way mirror is? The set of doors?
Yes.
That doors let out of the Fat Cave. So imagine just walls around there, and then an entrance.
Wow.
That's what the Fat Cave was. On the left of the Fat Cave, to the side of it, between the Fat Cave and the windows, was seating.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so they completely renovated the floor space of the calf, and I will say it is much cleaner now. Like trying to get from one place to another, it's much easier to get food. Right. The soda machines and the drink machines, I have to get soda, were where the kind of TKS table is now.
Oh.
And so, people would also wait in line, kind of like how they do for midnight breakfast.
Yeah.
Because things were really congested because the layout was terrible. So people would be all in their line, and you'd want to get a drink, and you have to go through the line to get the drink, and then go back through the line. It was atrocious. Hated it. So in that regard, congestion, much improved.
Yes. Any other ways other than the calf?
The calf?
Knox
yeah.
changed?
Yeah. Anything other than food?
But
Josh, anything?
Food's a big thing, though, because that's something we interact with every day.
Think about food a lot.
We think about it a lot.
Yeah, you used to be able to go into the Ox Gym. I suppose that's something.
The Ox Gym?
The auxiliary gym, the big brick building that looks like it's haunted.
Oh, yeah.
Right there.
Right there. Across.
Yeah, that's the Ox Gym. They used to have classes in there. Do they still? Did it reopen?
I've never heard.
It was closed because of
like
asbestos, I think, or something. It was closed for some reason, and I don't know that it's opened back up. But yeah, I used to do ballroom dancing in there. The basement looks like it's out of a Saw movie.
Really?
It's terrifying. It's where a bunch of students worked on their art projects for art classes, And so there's this like bathtub dripping in paint, right? That tucked in this corner, and everything is filthy and layered with dust. And there are these weird, like, Knox students, I apologize, but weird fucking statues. Like, I don't know what you were thinking when you made this thing out of plaster, but it looks like someone took the torso out of a child and, like, nailed it to a cross, right? All in this basement.
Yeah.
And there's no light. So you're just walking around with the flashlights on your phone. It's terrifying. It was lovely. Yeah.
Good time, buddy.
Good time. Yeah, the Ox Gym. I don't know.
It's all right if there's not much.
Trump got elected.
Yeah, you were here when that happened.
Yeah,
weren't
it was. I was a sophomore.
How was that?
They immediately had a fuck Trump rally.
Really?
Oh yeah. Can I swear on the air? Is that not kosher?
It's frowned upon.
That's why you're not swearing, isn't it?
Yes, it's
Okay.
frowned upon.
Well, that was the name of the event. So do I get that one free?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
No, like, it's frowned upon, but also, like, it's fine.
Okay.
As long as I don't do it, I don't think the show will ever be brought down. It'll be fine. I'll have the excuse.
I'll apologize to WVKC. I'm listening. Catherine sends her love. I apologize.
No, that's good. People do listen. It's a thing that happens. Sometimes I forget that people listen to this.
Uh-huh.
Because really, it's just a selfish way for me to interview people and talk to them.
Hey, that's okay.
But yeah, I mean, things do definitely change. And now that you're a senior and approaching the end of your Knox career, I would say you might disagree. But of a lot of the seniors I know, you seem to have kind of a pretty well set out plan of what is next.
Yes. So, I apologize. We transitioned straight out of what changed at Knox. I'm sorry.
I mean, if you think of anything else subconsciously, we can return.
Okay, okay. All right.
It's pretty free flow.
So the future? Is that what you're asking
Yeah,
about, the future?
like
Okay.
you're graduating soon. And
Yes. So,
everything's pretty well set out.
I've got a cushy retail job that I'm going back to.
Mm-hmm.
Not actually. Okay, we're good. I applied to first. So my junior year, I was like, what should I do? What am I going to do with my life?
Yeah.
And grad school, I think everyone thinks about at some point.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wonder if I'd like this. And so I decided to myself, if I did summer research and did an honors project and didn't hate it, I would go to grad school, or I would apply to grad school. And I did summer research, and I liked it a lot. It surprised me that I liked it so much. And I started my honors, and it started going well. So I applied to graduate schools, which is such a process.
Yeah.
It's so gross. The GRE is disgusting and should be obliterated. Every school expects you to, like, cater your application to their school. The one I like to make fun of is Ohio State University, partly because they insist on calling it the Ohio State University instead of Ohio State University. But the website, no offense, Ohio, well, take offense if you'd like. Your website's atrocious. It's really bad. Like I think genuinely, I suggest that you ask one of your computer science and like layout design students to work together for like a master's project and just redo the website, because it'll make it much easier for applicants to access information that they are required to have for your application. It's as polite as I'm going to make it. So,
there you go.
But yeah, process is terrible. But I get accepted into some of the programs, and from them I selected University of Minnesota's Early American History program for a doctorate. So 5-year to 6-year, honestly, PhD program, with maybe a master's along the way if I organize my coursework accordingly.
Yeah.
So that's what I'll be doing next fall.
Yeah. And you're living with
My girlfriend.
with your girlfriend,
Hannah.
yes. Yes.
Hannah, if you're listening, you're not, but congratulations. she got a job offer this morning.
Really?
Yes, she
For
did.
teaching, correct?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
In like
Yeah.
the area
Yeah.
you guys were
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful news. It's got to be crazy, especially we were talking earlier about how these were some of the more relationship things you weren't expecting.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be crazy to now be in this place where you're going to be living with your girlfriend.
Gonna live in, yeah.
Yeah.
Move in with my girlfriend. Yes, that is strange.
Yeah.
I never in a million years thought I would have a girlfriend, and here we are.
And here we are. Yeah. It's got to be wild. It's one of the fun things about doing this is you get to kind of walk through with people, going back and then going through.
Yeah, well,
It's a really
let's
fun
see.
thing.
We started dating early spring term sophomore year.
And you guys had been sort of heavy flirting, correct? Or at least flirting for a while before then, right? Is that a
Yeah,
thing?
like a couple weeks before, sure.
Yeah. But you started dating around spring term.
Yeah.
Sophomore? Or
April
junior?
Fool's Day.
Yeah.
Sophomore year.
Which is really funny.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny anniversary.
To have.
It's super easy to remember.
Yeah.
Super easy. But there's always that joke, you know.
Yeah. April Fool's.
Hey, it's been 3 years, April Fool's. You know, the long con.
Yeah, the longest con.
The longest con, yeah.
Man. No, but you've been, I don't know, you're very happy in it as
Yes.
of right now, and it's really good.
You interrogating me about my
No.
relationship on air?
It's a
You want me to talk about Hannah on air?
no, you're good. I'm just saying you
This is for like late Saturday nights.
Yeah,
in
but
the bar.
well, what I mean is you have a lot of things together, at least in the like surface level wise, right? Like you have a
Calling
job
us
line.
surface level.
No,
Sorry, go on.
You know what I
I'll
mean?
let you finish.
Because I don't know what your deep mental life is like, but like at least you're going to graduate school. You're
Yeah.
living with your girlfriend who has a
Yes.
job, like got accepted by
Going
a
to have
job. Like
yeah.
that sounds, I mean,
I know,
it's
it's
almost
kinda-
the
kinda
American dream,
like
right? Like
adulting, right?
Yeah.
Straight into adulting. I'm quite lucky.
yeah,
One, to have such a wonderful girlfriend, but two, because I was able to kind of maneuver. I was able to make plans in such a way that allowed me to have my immediate future planned out
yeah,
by this point. So I was fortunate that past me made the decisions past me did.
yeah.
Yeah. So I am grateful to my past.
That's an
Past
interesting
Josh and past people that supported Josh.
Mm. Yeah, man. I feel like we've covered a lot, and we might end soonish. I'm just
Sure.
letting myself, as I talk,
Yeah, we can.
subconsciously think of anything else I
I'm
really
not
want
bored.
to
I've
ask
got
you.
plenty.
Yeah, I'm just happy that you haven't been duty called yet.
Oh, me
Knock-
too.
knock on wood.
Thanks for that.
Um,
Maybe that's how we'll end.
Maybe that is.
Yeah.
But no, I've wanted to have you on for a while, and yeah, I mean, I guess my next question would be, how was the transition from? Because I'm about to reach this transition, I suppose, from like lower classmen, like freshman, sophomore, to
from college when you're worrying about college to college when you're worrying about the future.
yeah,
Yeah.
like how did that feel making that transition, if you can recall at all?
I all of a sudden felt a lot more in charge of things. And part of that was because all of a sudden I was in charge of things.
Yeah.
You know,
Like
it
improv,
coincided
yeah.
with me taking leadership positions in improv and Quiver magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And continuing my position as an RA. So I'd say basically the air didn't taste any different. I just stood up a little straighter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's part of adulting. I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It never really, you know, I don't know if you ever really feel like an adult till you do your own taxes. So.
That's fair. I haven't done that yet. My mom's a licensed CPA. She does that.
Oh
for
wow!
me.
Okay, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
It works out well for sure. No, but it's definitely a weird transition, and what's got to be weirder is I've experienced this slightly this year, but like having like freshmen and lower classmen like look up to you.
Oh yeah.
Has to be a weird
Having
feeling.
them like consider your opinions.
I mean, I'm one of those who looked up to you, and
What?
still do. Yeah.
What? You
Very
what?
yes, a lot.
What? I don't know if that's true.
A lot. I looked up to you, and I still do.
Yeah.
Very much so. And I think that's a big attribute to like how you have been saying yes to things and you are the person you've become. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'm an advocate of self-growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And how does... It's because you were saying you were mostly introverted in high school, and
Yeah.
was it weird to all of a sudden have people be like, "Oh, like looking up to you, Josh"? Was that a weird feeling?
No, I felt like I deserved it. Yeah, it was strange. I mean, I was used to the leadership capacity just because I had held those roles before. But I wasn't as used to, like eating with people every day.
Yeah.
So it was nice. I mean, genuinely, I think that most people do better with regular human contact, even introverts. Yeah, and I don't mean to, use the word introvert or have the word introvert used like it's a problem.
Yeah, because it's not.
It's not. I'm still an introvert.
It's a different way of getting energy, really. Like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's easier to face the world when you can be happier, So.
So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I'd say, I don't know, when you're looking at your junior year, make sure you're going to graduate on time. I'd say that's the big thing.
I'm currently
make sure you have those classes.
Yeah, I'm currently still credit ahead, and Joel's been helping me greatly with getting classes lined up. I've done all my main stuff like by the end of my freshman year, pretty much, or if not, then I think my fall term this year.
But you're gonna want to. You kind of know the specifics of what your majors requure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually working on that right now.
Right now,
for the most part. Yeah.
Your ed plan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely a big transition of like, and for me, something that Frank McAndrew said last week actually really helped me. He was saying like, don't look at a major as like your career, just look at it as, because that's what he was saying. It's like, don't look at it as your career. Look at it as something you want to learn and something you can build a skill set around, right?
Says the man that has a career.
Yeah, says the man who has a career. But I kind of looked at it and went, yeah, that's fair. Like, I am really interested in how the human brain works and how people work. And so, of course, psychology is what I want to do. That might not immediately translate to me being a psychologist or a counselor or anything, but, like, it will be helpful in anything I do, if it be some form of entertainment or what have you, whatever I end up doing. So, yeah, that's sort of the mindset I'm tackling it with right now.
Yeah, in that case, I would just say, make sure you have those specific, because psych is very anal about what classes they require. So make sure you have those. Yeah,
have those lined up.
And aside from that, I don't know. You might look to this next summer, but the summer after your junior year. At least the way I did it, I think it was helpful. I don't think everyone has to do it like this, but I think it's helpful. Of using it to explore a potential interest option in a more professional way. Just because it's still the summer, right? Yeah. You still have... It's malleable still. You still have flexibility because you're not going to be pigeonholed into this for like a year-long contract.
Yeah.
But it still gives you if you have an inkling of what you'd like to do professionally, or one of the things you'd like to do professionally,
get into it a little. Having
a little introduction to it during like the summer before you become a senior will help you decide if it's something you want to pursue.
That is really helpful advice. What did you do?
I did my research that led into my honors project.
Yeah.
So I spent the summer with the asset program at Galesburg, studying George Rogers Clark and visiting some like historic locations and taking notes and doing research. And I enjoyed doing so. Yeah. So that's why I pursued the honors project in the first place, and that's why I pursued grad school as well.
Your George Rogers Clark research is really interesting.
I'm glad you think so.
Yeah. And it's been a unique experience. It's sort of been an interesting experience for you, right? Researching all that, because I mean, I guess you can fill in a summary of the history of George Rogers Clark a little bit.
I can.
Yeah.
Would you like me to?
Sure.
Okay.
Just for the sake of people.
So, George Rogers Clark was the older brother of William Clark from Lewis and Clark. Mm-hmm. He was alive and a Virginia military captain, later general, during the Revolutionary War. He pitched a plan and was commissioned to lead a small army down the Ohio River to attack the British-controlled French settlements in the Illinois the Illinois country.
Mhm.
So Cahokia, near St. Louis. Kaskaskia, also a little farther away from St. Louis, but in the area. Prairie des Rochers, which I can't pronounce, and Vincennes, Indiana, which is still a city, so it still exists.
Okay.
My project aims to interrogate the relationship he had with indigenous nations, specifically on the March to Vincennes, which was his hallmark military achievement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really fascinating because, I mean, this may get into a broader topic we don't want to go into too much, but like, I know at least when I took AP US history and other.
Oh, there's a lot of stuff that's left out?
Yeah.
yeah, sure.
Well, we almost, there's like this semblance of guilt that we try to teach about what we did to the indigenous people. We go like, it was horrible, but then we like gloss over it. We kind of.
Yeah, well, okay, so I don't know if this is how your textbook was set up, but my textbook, my AP US history textbook, we had a whole chapter before everything else that was dedicated to the history of North America before Europeans came.
I believe we also had something
And then,
like that.
after the Revolution, they were never mentioned again until the Trail of Tears,
Mm-hmm.
and then never mentioned again until they took Alcatraz in like 1970. In 1968, I think.
Yeah.
Was it? It was 1968, wasn't it? There was the occupation of Alcatraz. Whatever.
wouldn't know.
Within those
Within
2
those
years.
years,
Within those
yeah.
2 years. Yeah. No. It's I mean, this should be apparent at this point, but indigenous people are still here.
Yeah. And
Right?
still being screwed over.
Yes.
As well.
Very, very much so.
Yeah.
But recovering and surviving, and honestly a really powerful group. But my the importance of my research and the work with memorials that I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
kind of resides in the fact that we're still teaching an abridged and a bad version of George Rogers Clark's story through the George Rogers Clark National Historical Park at Vincennes, Indiana. There's this big monument there that looks like, something that would be thrown up to George Washington or Abe Lincoln in Washington, D.C., right? It's a big mausoleum-looking stone rotunda, right, with 16 Doric columns, and it's like 80 by 60 feet. It's a huge monument right on the Wabash, in the site of historic Fort Sackville, which is where a lot of the action took place.
Yeah.
And once you go there, Native voices are astoundingly silent, which is a remarkable dissonance that's being performed from the reality of his campaign, which was that he was thoroughly interacted with and relied upon, in many cases, his interactions with Native American nations. They're kind of, the historic nations that he interacted with are kind of folded into the setting of his narrative, of this grand narrative that has been built around Clark.
Yeah.
Part of this was Clark's own fault, just because in his writings he aggrandized his own actions, and he accentuated his importance. He overplayed his role in history because he wanted to be like a mover and shaker, right?
Yeah.
He saw himself as one of the Washingtons. He saw himself as one of these people that should be respected and admired. He kind of had John Adams syndrome.
Yeah.
Adams was the same way.
He wanted to be important.
He wanted to be important, right? He felt like he did important things. He wanted to be important. Damn it. Right?
Yeah.
And like we see it as kind of whiny, but it's a similar thing that we do when we talk about legacy, like how we're going to be remembered. We're like, I want to be known. Well, it's kind of similar, right? They did things and they wanted to be known for them. They didn't do nice things, of course. George Rogers Clark most certainly didn't do nice things. Anyway, he wanted to be important, and so he portrayed himself as such. But his story really got picked up at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. And in my analysis, I say that largely he his story begins to get picked up because of the upcoming celebration of the Sesquicentennial, the 150-year anniversary of the Revolution. So 1926, 150 years after 1776. It's right about that time that more biographies of Clark getting published. It's at that time that the George Rogers Clark Commission is established by Calvin Coolidge, and the monument begins construction.
Yeah.
Right? And then after that, for the next 20 or so years, sporadic biographies and research is published.
Yeah.
And then radio silence.
Yeah.
Till actually kind of now. 2004, a book of essays was published, and 2012, another biography, really crap biography, was published. Really bad, just like, no offense if you're listening. I admire the fact that you wrote a book, but I think it could use improvement.
And now you're trying to write a book, correct?
No.
Not a book.
Not a book. So I've written 3 chapters.
Mm-hmm.
Each are about 20 pages. So basically just a collection of 3 essays on the subject of Clark, and on the subject of Native American nations interacting with Clark. The 3 broad categories. The first is how Native nations saw Clark.
Yeah.
Right? That's important because it's not what we talk about. Because Clark is the primary sources through which the story is told, his vision's on everything, right? His lens is on everything. And so the first chapter addresses some of the central claims he makes and tries to redress them through a different lens.
Yeah.
So how Native American nations saw Clark. The second chapter is how Clark saw Native American nations, which is divided into how he interacted with indigenous land, how he interacted with indigenous nations as polities, groups of political bodies, or social groups, and how he interacted with Native American individuals. The last one's important because, like many people that work within a framework of white supremacy, Clark, the defenders of Clark, have often pointed out specific friendly interactions he's had with Native Americans as proof that he was not hateful towards them.
Yeah.
And, TLDR, the chapter, the end of that section says that's a dumb argument.
Yeah.
It's TLDR, bad argument. The third section, the third chapter, is how we, people 100+ years after Clark did his thing, or rather Native American nations and Clark did their thing, would be a better way to put it, how we see him, or how we see that campaign.
Yeah.
And then I conclude with my vision of how we should remember Clark.
And what?
How should we?
How should we? Yeah.
How should we?
Clark should according to Josh Althoff,
Clark
20.
Clark should be a footnote.
Not a.
No, he's not a. Well, I mean, he should be a footnote as much as any of his similar types of historical figures should be footnotes. In that he is vastly overshadowed by the role and history of indigenous nations in that area. So my recommendation, actually, at the end of my honors thesis is that instead of celebrating George Rogers Clark, Vincennes celebrate Vincennes. Historical Vincennes, which started as a French outpost, trading outpost, and coaxed indigenous communities to move down the river and live with them, right? And created this multiracial, multi-ethnic kind of hodgepodge collections of francophone settlement, which was like rich in its character and history, and had its share of violences and terrible actions, but which is what emerges is just a much more engaging vision of Vincennes' history, because right now they dump all of their eggs into the basket of George Rogers Clark, when they're just sitting on this much more appropriate, right, and much more celebratory history. So
there you go.
Yeah, that's my take on George Rogers Clark.
On George Rogers Clark. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. I see you have not drank any water. You are a trooper. I struggle.
You've gone through, yeah.
Yeah, I have found
Yeah,
I
save some for
struggle.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can take those and drink them later. But I suppose we are like an hour and a half in, which is hard to think.
Yeah.
Usually,
I think. Well, your show's 5 to 7, right?
yeah, it is
Oh, okay.
certainly. That I don't usually go that long. Usually the shows are
usually.
like an hour and a
Oh,
bit.
okay. Well, we
Um,
could stop. That's fine. Yeah. I don't mind.
Yeah, I don't know if I have much else topical to talk about, and I don't like to keep people too long.
Okay. Well, yeah. It's been great.
It's been really good.
Yeah.
I will ask you one last question.
Okay. Yes.
Because I ask this question of everyone who comes on my show.
Do you ask who else you should ask?
No.
Oh, okay.
I ask if you could say anything to a future you looking back listening to this,
Okay.
or someone listening to this,
Yeah.
what would that thing be?
Good luck.
Just good luck?
Yeah. I
think
love
that's
you.
Aw, that's a good thing. I like that. So, future Josh, or anyone if you're listening, good luck, and
I love you.
yeah,
Yeah.
there
You'll
you
do
go.
good.
There you go.
Work through the tragedies.
There you go. That'll be nice. I'm just saying that'll be a nice thing, maybe one day
Yeah.
find yourself.
One day when I'm like on the edge of declaring war as Secretary of State, because in my mind, Secretary of State declares
war.
Oh God, I can't wait for poli-sci students to talk to me after this. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
the
then
show.
I'll see this interview and I'll be like, work through the tragedies, Josh Althoff. And I'll become a historian instead. Step down from the political sphere, buy some turtles,
and settle.
and settle.
I like that. So, that's been the big picture.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Who knows? Maybe you'll visit sometime in the future, and we'll have you on again.
Yeah.
I've looked forward to this for a long time, and I'm very glad we got to do it.
Me too.
It was a very good interview. So, with that, we shall end this episode.